Hey everybody, happy warm Wednesday evening live tutorial stream. It is hot here in Dallas. It looks like it is hot everywhere at the moment. It's about to be hot in Canada. Even where do we go? Where do we run to? All of us. I guess we're
underwater.
I guess we're getting in a bus and we're heading to Alaska or something. So yeah, summer is definitely apparently here all across the continent, and we are so happy to have all of you here with us tonight. I see Amy and Robin, Lori, and Aso. Happy Wednesday to each and every one of you. And Robin is about to be on vacation, which is super exciting. Oh dear, that wasn't what I meant to do.
Which two?
I clicked on the wrong thing. Yeah, see, we can't even run to the basement here in Dallas because we don't have basements. There are no basements in... Do any parts of Texas have basements? I'm curious. No? No basements in Texas.
You can get a basement here in Dallas, but you pay about as much money for the basement as you do for the rest of the house.
Fair. I mean, I know like large commercial buildings have basements, and because they have to or they can't, stand up. And parking garages and underground things like that. But yeah, no basements in homes here in Texas. It was one of the things that when I first moved to Texas, I could not figure out for the life of me why everybody who had a garage parked their car in the driveway instead of parking their car in the garage. And then one day I saw somebody's garage open and realized that, oh, that's where all the crap that we would put in the basement up north goes down here. It goes in the garage, and then there's no room for your car. And currently, I have a garage full of crap and I park my car in the driveway. So yes, I have officially assimilated in that fashion. So, welcome to the Beating Dreams live tutorial Wednesday evening stream. We have an earring stream for you today. We're doing these Deco earrings. Apparently, I'm kind of on a roll of Wednesdays for earrings. So this is a fun one. Fairly simple, just kind of an interesting interpretation of, how to use chain, a little bit of chain, a little bit of beads, a little bit of wire, and, make yourself a pretty fun earring. So let's talk tools and supplies. Oh dear, stop, which one, Amy? I'm wearing 4 of them. Please specify. I have radiolated quartz, I have a CZ Hamsa, I totally jacked that acrylic chain. Okay. Fine. We must discuss all of my necklaces. All right, we shall briefly discuss. Well, if I can get them off. They appear to be having a bit of a party here at the back of my neck, and I may be permanently stuck in these necklaces, everybody. I may be wearing these necklaces tomorrow because I can't get them off. Okay, so I am wearing 4 necklaces, which are having a bit of a cozy relationship.
They are.
At the moment, they really are. They didn't.
Menage a quatre.
Yes, they didn't look that tangled from the front, but holy mackerel. Okay, so brief discussion of my necklaces, and then we'll get to discussing tools and supplies for the... I totally didn't just drop that down my shirt. I don't know what you all are talking about. Okay, so let's see. The first necklace are these. These are Bollywood Bead Company. Wow, that could be brighter. I checked the focus. I didn't actually check the exposure. So yeah, these are Bollywood Bead Company rutilated quartz. Oh dear. No, I didn't say do that. Light. Get back on there. Get back on there. So yeah, these are rutilated, right? These are rutilated quartz from Bollywood Bead Company. And I love this really thin kind of window pane cut because you get a lot of drama and you get a lot of view through the awesomeness of the rutilated quartz. So that's a fantastic cut. I also have a pair of earrings in that cut that I wear fairly often. So that was, let's see, necklace the first. Necklace the second is going to be this little cubic zirconia pave hamsa. This is from my favorite CZ pave vendor. I love this design. I snatched one up as soon as she started doing these. So this is just multicolor cubic zirconia with gold plated over copper. This I am, remind me, I need to buzz her and make her, Lori wants an explanation, which I can't blame her for, considering the way you stated that. But yeah, I need to look into having another cubic zirconia pave trunk show. This is the 3rd or 4th iteration of these particular beads, and I finally got it to where I like it. These are Imperial Topaz Large, like 8 to 10 millimeter rondelles. This was, I think, when I bought this strand, it was to date the most expensive thing I had ever purchased. That was about 17 or 18 years ago. I think it was a $400 strand. I almost had a heart attack after I bought it, but definitely was in love with it and still am. And then this is the, but this is acrylic chain, which Amy is familiar with because she helped me put it together the other day, and I decided I liked it so much that I put it all together in a long length, and because it layers really well with all my kind of summery butterscotchy things. So that is all of my necklaces. Thanks per Amy's request, the lowdown on all the necklaces that I am wearing on tonight's stream. So now we're going to talk tools and supplies for this evening's tutorial. She is trashing all of them. I was witness to some of the trashing. I even helped.
Yeah.
I definitely helped.
It's true.
All right, you're going to need some wire. These are 16 gauge. This is 16 gauge wire that I'm using. You could use 14 or 18 as well, just depending on kind of what you have on hand. 16 just tends to be my go-to for earring frames and things like that. You're going to need some 26 gauge wire. That's going to be what we actually use to attach on all of the little bits and pieces, like all the little, I don't know why I'm trying to show you on that camera, and guess what? I have a camera right here that's designed to show things like that. Hey, look at that. So this is your 16 gauge wire here. This is your 26 gauge wire that we are using to attach everything on. You're going to need some chain, and I'm using a pretty fine length chain. You're going to need about 24 inches of it. You can fudge that a little bit by changing the length of this little tassel portion here, and then there's only so much wiggle room you have as far as changing the length of these, because that's really dependent on the size of your circle. But if you make a smaller circle, then these pieces will get smaller as well. You're going to need some beads. You're going to want 6 top drilled teardrop beads. So I'm going to use these cat's eye silimonite, or maybe they're just quartz eye. I think these quartz eye. No, quartz cat's eye. That's 3 words, people. I'm going to use these quartz cat's eye beads. I thought they were silimonite, but they're not. They're quartz. I've got some labradorite beads because we also need some center drill beads. We're gonna need 2 of those per earring, so we're gonna need 4 total. You're gonna need some soldered rings. I use 6 millimeter on my prototype. I happen to not be able to lay my hands on any of those right before stream, so I've got some big ones. I've got some 10 millimeter soldered rings. Really, as long as it's not too tiny, whatever size you happen to have, it's gonna work. And then of course, if you're going to make earrings, you need a pair of ear wires. So, and by that I mean 1 ear wire in my hand and 1 ear wire on the floor. Oh, the stream has only begun and already I'm throwing things on the floor. That does not bode well for tonight's sale. By the way, for anybody who is not familiar with how this stream works, on Wednesdays we actually do 2 streams. So we're going to do this tutorial stream, which is going to run roughly until 7 o'clock. Then we're going to take a little break and we will be back at 7:30 p.m. with a live merchandise sale. Tonight I have for you 5, 10, 15, and $20 gemstone strands. I have a bunch of new merchandise that I just put out that is bargain priced, and I am going to do stream specials on all of it for you. Those are stream only prices. If you do come into Beating Dreams in person, the prices will be different than when I'm selling these for tonight. So stream only special on 5, 10, 15, and $20 strands. And just to be clear, 5, 10, 15, and $20 are the stream special prices, not the regular prices. So I went ahead and cut myself 2 6-inch pieces of my 16 gauge wire. So I need 12 inches total. I just cut that in half. Of my 26 gauge wire, I can get away with just cutting a full 2-foot piece. I don't have to section that out, though if I find that I keep hitting myself in the face with it, I definitely can. It's more efficient. Up to a point, it's more efficient to work off of a longer piece of wire because you have less waste. But then you get to the point where you're spending so much time kind of corralling and manipulating the wire that it's taking more time. So you kind of have to find that happy medium for yourself. I'm usually okay with working with a 2-foot piece of wire, but for a beginner, if you're not used to working with wire, you might want to go, with a 1-foot piece instead. So I've got 2 feet of 26 gauge wire. 2 feet, no. Let's try that again, shall we? I'm having a very Monday-ish Wednesday, which is partly because Wednesday is kind of my Monday, but everything is off today, like the talking and the things. So let's try that again, shall we? I've cut a
Retrograde hangover.
Is it, so is retrograde over? Are we in the hangover
over.
period now?
And the hangover lasts till the 7th.
Okay, retrograde hangover. Awesome, because everything that has hangover in the description is guaranteed to be freaking fabulous.
Right?
Anyway, 2 feet of 26 gauge wire, 2 6-inch pieces of 16 gauge wire. Now I'm going to section out my chain, and just to make my life easier, I'm going to make all of the pieces the same length. Now you don't have to do that. You definitely can, if you want, make the pieces that are going to go into this tassel bit here shorter or longer than the pieces that are going to finish your earrings out here. But once again, just for ease on my part, I'm going to make everything the same length, and I'm going to make all of my pieces 1 inch long. Now, for anybody who hasn't seen my little trick for cutting multiple pieces of wire that are the same length, here we go. I'm going to start with a piece of skinny wire or a head pin. If I'm using wire, I just want to make sure that it's straight, okay? Make sure that it's not curved at all. And then I'm going to cut one piece of wire, one piece of chain that is the length that I want, which is going to be, once again, 1 inch. Then I'm going to take that 1 inch piece of chain and I'm going to thread it onto a piece of wire. Like so. Now I'm going to take my long chain and I'm going to catch the end of that, and I'm going to thread that chain onto my wire so that I now have my cut chain and my long chain that are hanging next to each other. And then I'm just going to use the length of my cut chain to tell me which link I need to cut on the long chain to have a piece that is exactly the same length. I'm going to cut for myself 8 pieces of chain. I have 3 pieces of chain on each of my little tassels here, and then 2 on the bottom. Yes, I thank you, Aso. Yes, new nails, gray and glittery, and then 1 random pink and glittery, because I am cheap, and so I try and make all of my nail sets go further by using up the ones from previous sets that I didn't use on subsequent sets of nails. So sometimes it's like crazy mixed up nails here at the Beating Dreams.
Well, that's perfectly on trend.
It is perfectly on trend, and I love that. I wonder if somebody came up with that for specifically that reason. Or if somebody just said, really, why do we have to paint all our nails the same color? Because that's boring.
I couldn't decide between these two.
So I picked both. Exactly. So yes, this is so much easier than counting links, Lori, on a little chain like this. Sometimes on bigger chain, it's actually easier to count link, but yeah. On trend, Amy, the mixed up, crazy mixed up nails. The ones that don't all matchy match. All right, so how many have I cut? She asks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 more makes 8.
I like it when you count in a fashion that I can follow.
But instead of saying half the numbers in my head and then just jumping.
2, 4, 6, 13.
Exactly.
We've
Come
only
on.
got 1 to go.
It makes sense to me. Hey, I went to public school.
So did I.
All right, so that's my 8 pieces of chain. Now, you will notice that I actually have a significant amount of chain left over. I'm not actually going to use that on tonight's project, so that does mean that my estimate of my chain is wildly overestimate, as is my tendency. So you really actually only need about, we do need to account for some for the, oh shush, Amy. Amy, you are fired from stream, except you better come back. The reason for that is when I originally had planned out this earring, and I don't know, this chain is just having a day. Yeah, see, I went to state college, so there's my excuse right there. Yay! See Amy tomorrow. Awesome. Love Amy days. The reason there's so much chain in my estimate is because when I had originally planned This earring, they had, there were 2 extra tassels on each of these, and then as I was doing my prototype, I realized that there was absolutely no way on God's green earth I was going to get through that in the time I had to teach this tutorial, so I simplified I managed my expectations, but I definitely forgot to change the supply list. So now I'm going to do a little bit of preliminary wire wrapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely wrap 4 of my teardrops, this one, and then their mates, on the other earrings. And I'm going to completely wrap these teardrops here at the bottom. Then I'm going to half wrap this link here, and I'm going to assemble my tassel in half wrap. Actually, I don't have to half wrap that. I can wrap that directly onto my soldered ring. Then the very last wrap on this one is going to get done. That's like the very last thing I'm going to do when I put everything together. So let's start with some top drilled and center drilled wire wrapping. So we're going to start with top drilled wire wrapping. So top drilled wire wrapping is this technique right here. This is what you will do on teardrops that have a hole right through the point. Now, we at Beating Dreams call these top drilled. There are a number of people who call them side drilled. Neither of us is really wrong. It's just a matter of what makes sense to you as far as referring to where that hole is. All right, I need to actually pick. You know, and picking pairs for earrings is harder than you might think, especially if you have a, yeah, you should, no, sorry. Once again, distracted by the chat. Picking pairs for earrings, especially when you have an earring that has like 6 instead of 2, is harder than you might think. Okay, so I'm going to start by doing a top drilled wire wrap on all 6 of these teardrops. So we're going to take our teardrop and we're going to thread our 26 gauge wire through our teardrop. And what I want to have is I want to have a short piece and a long piece. So my short piece is going to be about 1 inch. My long piece is going to be all the rest of my wire. I'm going to take that wire and I'm going to bend it up against the holes of my bead, like so. So I want to make a triangle, and I want ideally the point of that triangle to be directly above the point of my bead. Now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to grab the longer of my 2 wires, and I'm going to grab it right above the point where the 2 wires cross. Then I'm just going to hold my bead, and I'm going to just bend that wire up like so. So notice that wasn't a particularly, dramatic move, but what I did there is I took that wire and I centered it up against the central axis of my bead, so that now I have a centered wire around which to wrap, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to take, and I do this just with my fingers. If you can get your pliers in here to hold, you definitely are welcome to do that. The thing that I find is you need to make sure that this point where the 2 wires cross is completely clear, and it's hard to do that with your pliers. Sometimes they cover it up. So I'm going to take the short wire, I'm going to wrap it around the long wire as tightly as I can, and I want to go about 1.5 times. Now, I am coiling the wire around. Okay, sorry, I keep wanting to put this closer to the camera than I have it focused, so I'm just going to take a minute and I'm going to change that focal distance so that I can stop having to look at it and go, oh crap, that's too close. Let's just fix it. Oh, there are only 2. Well, that's always exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wrap the shorter wire around the longer wire 1.5 times, nice and tight to that core wire. Now I'm going to take my wire cutters, which I didn't actually talk about tools, so we'll do that now. This is a wire cutter. This is one of your basic wire working tools that you are going to need for this project. You're also going to need this tool. This is a chain nose pliers. I'm going to use that to take our pointy stabby end and just squeeze that down. And then the next tool we're going to use is going to be a round nose pliers. So we're going to use a round nose pliers to make a basic wire wrapped loop on the top of this drop. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to hold them so they're touching the top of the wire wrap that I just made. And then I'm going to push my wire away from me over my pliers to make a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to loosen, rotate, and grab again with my pliers. So now what I'm doing is I've got my pliers grabbed right on that corner that I made. Now if I were doing this in front of me instead of trying to show it to my camera over here, I would actually be sitting with this work in front of me like this. This is a comfortable working position. Obviously nobody really purposefully works like this unless they have to. So this next step, if I were sitting in front of me, what I'd be doing is I'd be pulling that wire back up over the top towards me and down. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to pull that back up over the top towards me and down like so. Now what I'm starting to do here, you can see, is starting to make a loop around my round nose pliers. Now I'm just going to loosen my pliers, rotate them a little bit to get them out of the way, and then I'm going to finish that loop by pulling my wire underneath my pliers to make what we here on the Beading Dreams stream love to call the lady with the scarf. Okay, so that's basically a loop that's centered over the bead with a long trailing wire. That is, of course, our scarf. Now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, I'm going to hold across my loop like so, and I'm going to wrap starting at the loop, and then I'm going to wrap down and down until I meet the end of wire that's already there. So I have an end of wire that's already there from that first wrap that I did. So once I have met it, I'm going to trim off that wire like so. And then I am going to, see, now I have pointy stubbies. See them winking at you? We don't want those. So I'm going to take my chain nose and I'm just going to press all of my ends down. And if I do this right, my two ends should butt right up against each other. And it should be, it's never going to be seamless, but it should be relatively seamless. So that is my top drilled wire wrapped stone. So here we go with the next one. So again, whack your camera, that's an integral part of the experience. I'm going to take my 26 gauge wire, thread it through my bead, and I want to have a short side and a long side. I want to go ahead and take those two ends of wire, bend them up against the hole of the bead, like so. Now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, grab on the long wire directly above the point where those two wires cross, and then bend it slightly to center it over the point of my bead. Then I'm going to take the short wire, I'm going to wrap it around the long wire 1.5 times. And then I'm going to trim that wire off. Trim it as close as you can and use your chain nose to press in your little pointy stabby bit. Now we're going to take our round nose pliers, we're going to place them so that they are touching the top of that wire wrap that we just made. We're going to go away. Rotate back up over the top. Rotate underneath. That is our lady with the scarf. We're going to hold across like so, and then we're going to wrap, starting at the base of the loop and going downwards. And once again, when you reach the point where those two ends have met each other, you're going to go ahead and trim that end off, and then press down the pointy stabby. And that now gives us two wire wrapped teardrops. So now I'm going to continue this procedure for all remaining 4 of my teardrops. So same top drilled wire wrapping procedure. Again, wire goes through, bend it up, center it with your chain nose. Short one wraps around the long one 1.5 times. Ideally, you do want to keep those as neat as possible. Trim your end off. And press down your pointy stabby end. Now we do the basic wire wrap, which means you're going to take your pliers, hold them so they're touching the top of that wire wrap that you just made, and we go away. Rotate, back up over the top, rotate underneath, there we go, and then hold across your loop and wrap. Yes, it's always exciting when people try to name drop and they drop the name of somebody who, you know, we don't have an employee named Ashley. Now, usually when they say Ashley, they mean me, because Ashley and Allison are both pretty solidly generic white girl names, and in appearance, I definitely fit that category. We had a darling elderly customer who was just dead convinced that Heather's name was Summer. Dead convinced. But she was so adorable, we couldn't really bear to let her down. So Heather was just Summer. Whenever Bonnie was in, I don't know if Bonnie is still with us, but she was a doll and an absolute character. But yeah, people are funny. The other thing is, you know, and I've been in retail long enough to know that you don't always remember what people look like. I don't always remember what people who help me look like. I mean, unless it's someplace I go a lot, which, I mean, pandemic, so really, lately, there's no place I've been going a lot. Like, I don't always remember names and faces, but it's always amusing when people are, talking to one of us about that girl who helped them the other day, and, you know, well, I don't know if you know what you're talking about, but that girl who helped me the other day, you know, she was really good, and she did this and this and this, and it's like, yeah, that girl was me. Like, it totally me, still me, same person. Very funny. Sometimes you correct them, and sometimes you just smile and nod, because, you know, retail. Sometimes it ain't worth it. Alright, so I'm on my second to last teardrop. I am trying to hustle through these a little bit, because we have lots of things still to do. Alright, so again, wrapping the short one around the long one, 1.5 times right at that bend, and then we're going to trim off and press our stabby end down. Then we're going to take our round nose, and again we place them right at the top of that wire wrap, and we go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate, underneath. Okay, so I have to okay, what's really hilarious is that Heather's responding from not her usual spot there. Right, exactly. Or people who come into Beating Dreams, of course, this is always a great one. Well, I talked to the owner the other day, and she told me this, that, and the third. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because I've never actually spoken to you. Hi, my name's Allison. I'm the owner of Beating Dreams. What can I do for you? Some people have the grace to look abashed at that, and some people just roll right on over it. But it's kind of amusing sometimes, because I am, you know, still getting on in my years, but I am still the youngest person by a couple of years of the entire staff of Beating Dreams. So it's always interesting when people gravitate towards, you know, the oldest of our staff members, just assuming she must be the owner. Oh, there's a cliche about books and covers or something like that comes to mind. Okay, so now I have absolutely finished all my top rolled wire wrapping. Yeehaw. Alright, so now I got 6 of these babies. Now we're going to do our center drilled wire wrapping. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to make our little tassel bit here, and then we're going to start this part down here. So basic wire wrap we actually just did, so we're just going to do it twice now. So I'm going to start this time with my round nose pliers, and since I don't have a wire wrap to snug them up against, I'm just going to hold about 1.5 inches or so from the end of my wire. I'm going to push that wire away from me, rotate, back up over the top, rotate again, and underneath, and we have, once again, our lady with a scarf. Now I'm going to make my tassel. So I'm going to take 3 of my chains off of my little pin that I've made here, and the easiest way to do that is to just come down here at the end and just grab your wire through the last link of each of these chains. So I'm just going to catch one there, one here, and one here, like so, and then just pull them off of that wire, and there you go. Hey presto, now they're on the wire wrapping. I'm going to take those 3 and just pull them up and into that loop. Now try not to do what I did. I yanked a little too hard and I completely destructified my loop while I was doing that. Don't do that. Be kind to your loop. The loop is your friend. Everyone likes the lady with a scarf. We don't want to deform her. Okay, there we go. So now that I fixed my loop, I've got my 3 chains that are grabbed onto that loop, and then I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers. I'm going to gently hold across the loop like so. Now you have to be really a little bit gentle when you do this, because if you get any of these chains in your pliers, it's not a bad thing, but you can actually squish through the chains, which isn't good. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to wrap this around, and I like 2 or 3 wraps on this one. So that was 2. There's a 3rd. Trim my end. Trim it as close as you can, and then press down with a little pointy stabby, like so. Now I'm going to put on one of my center drill beads. Remember, I'm going to be using 4 of these, so I've got my little labradorite beads that I'm using, so I'm just going to drop that onto my wire, pull it all the way down, and then I'm going to do a second basic wire wrap loop that I'm going to link onto my soldered ring. So we're going to take our round nose pliers and we go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate underneath to once again create Our Lady with a Scarf. Grab your soldered ring, just go to the end of your wire and catch that soldered ring in your wire. Just pull that all the way up. This time I'm going to try not to destroy my loop when I pop it into my soldered ring, which I did a much better job of this time. Now we're going to hold across the loop, which is a little bit awkward with that big soldered ring in there, so I'm just going to do the best that I can for holding. Here's a trick. If you can't get in there to hold with your chain nose, you can use your round nose, because they are they're smaller, but you got to be careful, okay? You can't press super hard with that because you will press right through your wire. All right, wrap until you've reached your bead and trim and press down that pointy stabby. Now we're going to repeat for the other tassels. So one more time, we're going to take our round nose pliers and we're going to go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate underneath. That gives me my first lady with a scarf. I'm going to once again go to my little pin of my wires, and I'm just going to catch the last 3 links of these 3 that are on the end of my... Hey, also I just realized, hey, did anyone else catch my mathematical error earlier in the broadcast? I bet Lori did, and she was just nice enough not to say anything. I actually need 10 pieces of chain, not 8 for this, because I need 3 for each tassel and 2 for each earring. So 3 plus 4 plus 3 is 10, not 8. Hold across your loop and wrap. That means I'm going to have to just knock out 2 more pieces of chain quickly. Now if you can't hold on to this wire, like I like to do it with my fingernails, but if you don't have fingernails, or if your fingernails aren't up to it, you can also grab that at that point with your pliers, your chain nose pliers, or even your round nose pliers, and pull that around. So we're going to trim that pointy stabby end off, press that down with the chain nose pliers. Then we're going to drop a labradorite onto there. Like so. Slide it all the way down, and then we're going to do a second loop, and once again this one's going to get linked around our soldered ring. So we're going to go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate underneath, like so. Catch that other soldered ring with the end of the wire, like so. All right, so what you're saying, people, is if I hadn't actually admitted it online, no one would have been the wiser to my math error.
I wouldn't have known.
Heather said she wouldn't have known. Well, I outed myself on the internet, so everyone now can know that I mathed badly at the beginning of this tutorial. That also means I need to revise that slightly upwards to say about 12 inches instead of 10 inches, because once again, you need a little bit of extra chain for the cutting. So Laura, if you need to go back and change that again in your notes, we should have 12 inches of chain, not 10 inches. Okay, so now I have my two little tassels. Now, the cool thing about this is if at this point you're like, wow, I'm sick of this, you could totally put ear wires on those and they would be good to go. But we are going to continue on with making these earrings. I'm going to go ahead and just take a second and knock out two more pieces of chain. And then we're going to make our earring shape. So for the earring shape, you're going to need some kind of a dowel, or I'm going to use my ring stick. And actually, for the size of earrings I did on my prototype, which are fairly large, I think I actually used like an 1.5 inch dowel for that one. This one's only an inch, but I'll show you how you can adjust that to be a little bit bigger. If you want a bigger circle than the dowel that you're using. I mean, for starters, the wire, as you know, is going to spring up when you wrap it around your dowel and release the tension on it. So you're automatically going to have a bigger loop than you have dowel. That was a terrible cutting job. This is why one should concentrate on what one is doing instead of just blathering. But yeah, so you're always going to wind up with a slightly bigger loop than what you're wrapping it around because of the fact that your wire is going to spring up. But I'll show you how to make it even bigger if you want to. Okay, so now I got my 4 pieces of wire. Now let's make those earring frames. So I'm going to take my dowel and I'm going to grab one of my 6-inch pieces of 16 gauge wire, and I'm just going to grab that and put about 1 inch of it overhanging the dowel and just pull it around my dowel until it's wrapped around as far as it'll go. It should be overlapping, and let it go. And so see how that's going to spring up to being bigger than your dowel? Like the diameter of that is a solid 1/4 inch bigger than the dowel. Okay, bye Tally Fat. We'll see you in a bit. I'm probably going to start late because it's already 7 o'clock, so you probably have 15 extra minutes. All right, there's that. Okay, so now I have my 2 kind of proto circles here, my 2 circles that are almost ready to go, but not quite. So to make them bigger, all I'm going to do is take my 2 ends and just push them closer together, and that's going to enlarge my circle significantly. Okay, so that's the one that I just enlarged, and that was its original size. So again, and I know this is out of focus, but I think it'll be better if you can see it, even if it's blurry. So you're just going to take your 2 ends and you're going to push them towards each other. So just see how I took my hands and I brought them closer together. We do want to try and make sure that we have similarly sized loops because, you know, earrings and stuff. There we go. I love these because they look like some kind of weird cartoon character with like crazy pigtails. And then I am going to go ahead and I'm going to cut these pieces off right where they cross. And so since I've got these both in their relaxed state, there's no tension on these. I don't really need to mark them because they're not going to move unless I make them move. But if you wanted to put a Sharpie mark at the crossing point, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm going to flush cut them, which means I'm going to cut one that way, and then I'm going to flip my work around and cut the other this way. And then I'm going to repeat this one, cut, turn, cut, and again, that's just so that I get a nice flat end on each edge. And then once again, just put them against each other, make sure that they are still the same size, which they are, yay. And then we're gonna go ahead and make our little loops, which are gonna attach onto our soldered ring. So we're gonna do that with our round nose pliers, and we're just going to take one side of my frame, and I'm gonna grab with my round nose, and this is a little awkward because I really wanna grab with my round nose parallel to the shape, which means that you kind of got to fit it in there between both ends and, you know, the bottom of your shape. You're going to hold nice and tight, you're going to brace with your finger, and you're just going to roll that wire over. See how I'm rolling over, making a loop around my pliers, kind of like what I do when I'm doing my basic wire wrap loop. Now I have a problem, which is that my wrist does not bend any further than that, so what I'm going to do is just loosen my pliers, pivot back in that loop till I have a more comfortable position of my wrist. Look, much more normal. And then I'm just going to bring that around, and if I didn't rotate back far enough, especially because apparently I'm having an ouchy wrist day, I can do just kind of little baby steps to work this over here until that end touches this other piece of wire. And I do want my loop to be flat in the same plane as my circles, so if it's kind of dipping downward like it is now, you can just flatten it out with your chain nose pliers. Repeats with the other side. Grab and just roll, baby steps, and that gives me 2 loops. Repeat with my other, grab, roll, roll, roll. I'm on my second. So however you need to hold this to get the right angle is fine. Like sometimes if I hold it right side up, upside down, it doesn't really matter. But what I'm doing is I'm just rolling these loops. And again, I want to make sure that they are in plane, which they are. What I mean by in plane is essentially if you're looking at the front of this piece of wire, you shouldn't see the loop. You should just basically see a straight line instead of looking through the loop. Sometimes when you're making these, they get rotated off so that they look like that instead. So when you're looking at, you know, what is the front of this component, you shouldn't see the loops at all. You should only see a line. All right, now I'm going to make sure that I like the shape of these, that they are round enough for me. They have sufficient levels of roundness to satisfy my roundness requirements. And now we're going to hammer them. Now, do you have to hammer them? No, you don't actually have to hammer them at all. Hammering gives them this nice flattened texture, which is also a little shiny, which I definitely like, and it makes them more sturdy, and I like that as well. But if you don't have a hammer, or you're just not a fan of the hammered look, you definitely could absolutely get away without hammering these. But I am going to, which means I am going to need my bench block or bench block equivalent and my chasing hammer. And I'm going to put these down on my bench block right down here, and I'm just going to hammer everything except for the loops. I'm going to be real careful not to smash my fingers, because even though it's a little hammer, it still hurts. It's going to get a little loud on the Beating Dream stream for a moment, so if you want to mute me, now is the time. Okay, so you can see once I'm done hammering them, the wire is flatter, it's a little bit sparklier. Also, it's sturdier. It doesn't want to pull out of shape. Hi, Sophia. Doesn't want to pull out of shape as much, as easily. So I'm going to once again do the same with my other frame. Way to show up for the loud part of the stream, Sophia. All right, so that's 2 hammered components. Now you may notice, you probably will notice, when you hammer, your component is going to get a little off kilter. It's going to get a little warped. That's because you've literally squished and changed the way that the molecules of your wire are arranged. So feel free to just kind of manipulate that until it gets back into the shape that you want. You can use your pliers, you can use your fingers, you can use really whatever works. Okay, and now, so now we're going to go ahead and attach these onto our soldered rings. So I'm going to take my chain nose and I'm going to go ahead and lift open my loops. And I know I rarely say to do it this way, but it's going to be way easier for you if you just uncurl the loop a little bit, especially on the second side, rather than trying to twist it open. So the first side's easy. Untwist the loop or unroll the loop, add your soldered ring, and then use your chain nose pliers to gently and carefully just squeeze it back into shape so that it's holding your soldered ring. The second one is also easy, it's just not quite as walk in the park easy, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open that up. And I just want to make sure when I'm putting it on this soldered ring that I get these both on the same way. So this is a key to, hey, you've done this correctly. I have 2 loops, I've got a nice stable centered ring that I can see through the middle of, and my tassel is dangling from it. If you did that, you're golden. If you have things that want to kind of twist up and get all cantankerous and cattywampus, you know, you probably managed to put this on somehow the wrong way. And that's why this is one of the few times where I will tell you, and I'm just going to squeeze that close, where I will tell you, unroll your loop, don't twist it open. It's very rare that I will give that instruction, but yet here we are. And once again, if at this point you're like, you know what, I am sick of this project, put an ear wire on there, and this also is a super fun earring. You don't have to do the rest of the project. You can always take those 6 wire wrapped beads that you did and you can do something else with them. All right, now we're going to add our second soldered ring and tassel component. So once again, I'm going to just unroll this, drop that on there, and squeeze it back, and then take my other one, unroll, and you may have to pull a little bit, that's okay, tension's actually good on this, and then squeeze it back, and there we go. That's the back, that's the front. Now let's add our little embellishments and our chain. So we're going to do our 2 pieces of chain and these side loops. So we're going to take our 26 gauge wire. And this is the one thing about this project that's a wee bit tricky, is you want to always start coming from the back, just because otherwise your earring's going to look a little weird. So I'm going to pick a point, you know, a third of the way up the sides. This is my point here, I've just decided, and I want to start by putting my wire, my 26 gauge wire, underneath my frame, and then I'm going to wrap 3 times around from back to front, and I want to pull nice and tight like so. Come on. Alright, so that's 3 wraps. Now I need to make a loop. So I'm going to do 2 things. Number 1, I'm going to grab one of my wire wrap teardrops and I'm going to slide that onto this wire here, like so. Yeah, I had it on the wire, I promise. And then I pulled it up to the camera and it came off, because why not? Okay, so I'm going to hold that right up against my frame, and I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and I'm just going to hold across my frame like so. Then I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to go around my pliers and I'm going to wrap it. Now I'm going from front to back, so I switch directions around my frame, and I've got to kind of get that nice and tight. Make sure you don't do anything weird with that loop, and pull it around like so. Once I've got one to anchor, I can take my round nose out of there, and I want 3 total, so that was 1, 2, and that's actually 3 if we're going to count that first one. So now what I have is I have this little drop, but guess what? I forgot something. I forgot to put my chain on because I am just that awesome today. That's okay. I haven't cut anything yet, so I can totally back it up. So this just goes to, oh my gosh, I made one of the dumbest, so now I'm just unwrapping this here. I made one of the dumbest mistakes in front of a customer today, and she was so sweet. She was like, it really makes me happy to know that I'm not the only one who does things like that. I'm like, oh Lord, of course you're not. Okay, so I'm backing up. We're pretending like those last 60 seconds of airtime never happened, and I've just put my drop on, and now I'm going to take one of my remaining pieces of chain. See, this is where I went astray. I'm going to take one of my pieces of chain and catch that on the end and thread that on as well. And so what I want is for both the drop and the chain to be in that little loop. So once I've accomplished that, then I would hold with my round nose and I would make that little loop, and then I would wrap 3 times. So that's 1, 2, 3. Like so, and then trim off your ends, and of course tuck in your pointy stabbies. At this point, that probably goes without saying. Smash them. And just like our tree of life the other day, if you want to, make sure that they're tucked down just as securely as possible, you can always grab them with your chain nose and then just sort of rotate your frame under. Well, that's true. I mean, trying to be answerer of all questions and solver of all problems while also still doing things is not maybe the easiest of tasks, but still, it was a pretty stupid mistake. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of this. So this is where you just have to use your brain cells just a wee bit. Hey, Avatar, nice to see you there. Oh, Raiders! See, my stupid bot doesn't hype positively crafty. Yay, we has Raiders! That means we're definitely not going to end this stream on time. So hi, everybody. How is everyone? I hope that everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday evening. What were you all doing on your stream this evening, Positively Crafty? What were y'all, it's evening here, so I'm saying evening, but what were y'all up to? Also, I love that your thumbnail is a Corvid. That's fan-freaking-tastic. So hi, everybody. Welcome to the Beating Dreams stream. So you are catching me at the end of the project. What we are doing on the stream this evening is we are making this pair of earrings. These are what I'm calling the Deco earrings, mainly because I have so much class content at this point that I'm pulling random names out of my ass to name things. But we are approaching the end of the project. This is one of those where you kind of approach it piecemeal. So I started out by taking my 6 teardrop beads. These are some quartz cat's eye beads, and I did a wire wrap on top of each of them with some 26 gauge wire. And then I assembled my little tassels with, this is 1 inch of tiny little chain wire wrapped onto a little 6mm rondelle, and then I wire wrapped that onto a soldered ring. We made our earring frames, which were formed around this 1 inch dowel, but I wanted them to be a little bit bigger, so I stretched them a little bit bigger. I hammered them, and then I attached it to my soldered ring. So this is where we're at right now, and now we're attaching the last little dangling bits of chain, and then we're going to put it all together. Hooray for going to bead stores and buying lots of beads to play with. That is the best. And as the owner of a bead store, I would like to personally thank you on behalf of my industry, because we really, we were struggling before the pandemic, and I really don't know how we're going to be after the pandemic, but like every single person who comes in the door, it's just, super, super grateful for that. Okay, so once again, we're going to be doing wrapping from back to front. So this earring does have a front and a back. That's determined by the loops. That's front, and then where you can see the back of that loop, that's the back. So I'm going to start with my wire underneath the back of my earring like so. Oh, that's the best cut. Eventually we will go back to, so I'm going to wrap this around 3 times. Eventually we will go back to, so whenever I used to do gem shows, like, whenever gem shows were happening, because, pre-pandemic, every time I would go on a big shopping trip, we would do a live unboxing, and I miss those. I cannot wait to get back to doing them because they were so freaking much fun. Okay, so I've got my 3 wraps here. Now we're going to do this right. The Raiders missed me messing it up last time, but alright, so I have my 3 wraps. Now I'm going to put on one of my wrapped drops and one of my chains. Forgot the chain a second ago. But yes, unboxings are so much fun. Okay, so there we go. And now I'm going to mysterious, excited voice. Yes, that was Heather's auspicious beginning as the voice in the background. Okay, so now that I've got both of those things on, and it is important that I have my, I still screwed it up. It's, you know, I'm blaming the retrograde, that's all I have to say, because what I was about to say was it's very important that your chain be the closest thing to your frame. And then look at this picture on your screen and you can see that my chain is absolutely 100% not the closest thing to my frame. Let's reverse that order, shall we? So what we've learned here is that when you're doing an earring like this, you need to mirror your actions from one side to the other. Now, is that logical? Of course it is, 100%. Did I do it? No, I didn't. But that's okay, I fixed it. So now I've got my chain is closest to my frame, and then I've got my drop. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to hold across my frame like so. And I'm going to, and you can squeeze harder than you think with these round nose, because since we've worked hard in our wire, the chances that we're going to completely deform it are pretty slim. I'm just going to go, I'm going to bump my camera a lot. I'm going to go around my round nose like so, so that I make a little loop, and then I'm going to come down next to my round nose and wrap around. There you go. Wrap around my frame. And once you get to a point where you actually can pull, go ahead and pull things nice and tightly. And then I'm going to wrap around 2 more times. So I have a total of 3. So that's number 2. At some point you can, you know, once you think that loop is set, you can take your round nose out. So that's 2, and that is the 3rd one. We're going to clip our ends off. In the back, we want to clip them off as close as we can, ideally with a nice sharp wire cutters. That's 1. And that's 2. And then we want to make sure we pull down all of our pointy stabbies. Squish. Squish. Okay, and since we do have a live merchandise sale coming up, theoretically in 13 minutes, hashtag spoiler alert, it ain't going to start in 13 minutes. I think I'm going to go ahead and finish this earring on stream and trust that you can all take this that I have done and just apply it to the second earring. So all my raiders, anybody who's not familiar with the Beating Dream stream, every Wednesday and Saturday night we do a live merchandise sale. That means that in it's going to be at around 7:45. Usually it's at 7:30-ish, but since I'm running this stream a little bit over, I need to grab some food and finish closing up my shop. So we'll be back probably around 7:45 with a live merchandise sale. We have all kinds of fun strands, and we're doing a bargain sale tonight. So we've got $5, $10, $15, and $20 wood and gemstone strands. There's a little bit of crystal in there, so if you raiders are so inclined, we would love it if you would come back and hang with us during that 7:30, 7:45 sale. Also, it tends to get there usually are shenanigans on stream, so it's usually a good time. And thank you, Heather. Yes, anybody who has a first-time claim during our live merchandise sale, we will ship to free anywhere in the continental U.S., regardless of the size of your claim. So even if you just get one $5 strand, if it's your first claim ever, we will ship it to you for free in the continental U.S. Any of my international viewers, I love you. I appreciate you. I'm sorry I can't ship you a $5 strand for free because it's going to cost me $15 to ship it. We'll work something out, I promise. We will figure it out. Because I am super excited about all viewers, you know, domestic, international, whatever. If you're watching the Beating Dream stream, I am so happy to have you here. Okay, so the last 2 things we're going to do to put this earring together is we are going to attach our wire, or attach our 2 chains together, and then we're going to put our ear wires on. So we're going to grab 1 more of these top drilled teardrops, and we're just going to have that handy. I'm going to grab my 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to start making a basic wire wrap loop. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and we're going to go away. Yes, Amy, rotate back up over the top. Rotate. You are such a lurker, Amy. You are a lurker and a never shopper. That's you. But you also don't have to worry about shipping because you local. Link those 2 together. Make sure that teardrop is completely enclosed within that loop. Then you're going to hold across the loop. like so, and we're gonna wrap and wrap, and I like two or three wraps. You don't have to be super precise with that. Obviously it's an earring, so whatever you do on this one you want to replicate on the other one, but at this point it's kind of anything goes. Trim that off, press in your pointy stabby. Yes, Amy? That's all I have to say about that comment. I'm going to take one of my center drill labradorites, and again, this is like a 6mm rondelle. Also, hey, look, random hair on the stream. Drop that on there, like so. And we're going to make a second basic wire wrap loop. Now, this one I want to be fairly large because we want to, you know, kind of link those two chains together and give them plenty of play. So I'm going to go a little further down than I normally would on my round nose pliers. The wire avatar that I'm using is sterling silver, but since this is a cold class, meaning we're not touching anything with a torch, you can really use whatever wire you have. So it would work great with brass, bronze, copper, sterling silver, 14 karat gold filled. We are hammering the wire, so the only thing that gets a little bit touchy about that is the coated wire, like the colored wires, because sometimes when you hammer them, you'll scratch the coating off. But any wire that's just a straight, you know, colored wire like bronze, brass, copper, etc., is going to be fabulous for this. So I'm starting to make kind of a larger loop. So I'm just going to once again follow my basic wire wrapping procedure of going away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate, underneath. So I've got my lady with the scarf, which is our term for the loop at this point where it's just a loop that's centered over the bead. And then I'm going to grab my earring, and I have two. So I've got my two ends of chain. See, they're just kind of dangling there. So I'm going to take my 26 gauge and I'm just going to I did it. I'm going to catch it through both of those ends of chain, and then I'm just going to slide up. At this point, you're at the point where you have a lot of moving parts, so just take your time, because what they need to do is they need to go in the back of the loop like so, and they both need to snap into that circle like so, and then we're going to hold across the loop with our chain nose pliers. Hey, I didn't say you could do that. Chains are getting sassy with me on stream. Alright, so I'm going to hold across my loop with my chain nose pliers, and then I'm just going to wrap nice and tightly around, starting at the base of that loop and going around. And on this side, I really don't have to count. I'm just going to wrap around until I reach my bead like so. And then I'm going to trim my wire end off, and you can see really clearly for once the little end there. Okay, you don't want that end to continue sticking out, so the best way to smash it down is to just take the tips of your chain nose pliers and very gently just kind of catch it, and angle is hugely important on this. And see, if you catch it at the right angle, it'll just kind of curl in there with the rest of your coils. You're just going to do that until you've got it all smushed in there. And then of course we would repeat that on our other earring. And then the last thing that we need to do to make this into an actual functional earring is we need to add our ear wire. That's thankfully a piece of cake. I'm going to take my ear wire and I'm going to just twist it open, drop my earring component on there, and then close it back up. And now we have an awesome functional sterling silver tassel and cat's eye and labradorite earring. So that's going to be it for the Beading Dreams tutorial stream for this Wednesday evening. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us, spending some time with us to make this awesome deco earring. If you're not an earring person, this would also be a really fun pendant or centerpiece for a necklace. To my raiders especially, thank you so much for hopping on over and hanging out with us. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. So it being Wednesday night, that means in just about probably 20 minutes. Yes, it should be 6 minutes, but I can tell you right now that ain't gonna happen. We're gonna be doing a live merchandise sale. We're gonna have $5, $10, $15, and $20 strands of gemstones, crystals, and wood. So if you are so inclined to come on back at around 7:45, we would love to see each and every one of you there. So for anybody out there who doesn't know me, and there are new people, so you might not, I'm Allison from, thank you, Positively Crafty. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. We are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. That means we do have actual premises here on Lovers Lane in Dallas, and we are open to feed your need to bead 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday from 1 to 6. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/beading dream, 5 times a week with complimentary tutorial streams. We do stream Wednesday through Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, and we do live merchandise sales every Wednesday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and we do a lunchtime stream Thursday at noon. That means tomorrow is a noon stream day. I'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/beading dream, with this project. This is our charming leather bracelet, fun, fairly easy lunchtime project. So I'm going to go run around like a chicken with my head cut off and hopefully be back on stream in about 20 minutes. So everyone, go ahead if you're going to join on the sales stream. If you're so inclined, pour yourself a cocktail. Make sure you got something to hydrate with. Have a snack. Get comfy, get cozy, and get ready for some retail therapy right in the comfort of your living room, office, or wherever you happen to be watching the Beading Dream stream. Anybody who is not going to make the sale, thank you so much for being here for the tutorial stream, and hopefully we will see you on another stream very, very soon.